Well, what I'm trying to do in this movie, and I feel really unequal to the task, I must say, is to try to give you the bottom line of action on Confront. So let me start by saying that first of all, you have to know what the issue is, what the problem is, what the what's missing, what you've got too much of, what's like you have to define what it is that you need to confront. A long time ago when I did the S training, they taught this technique for curing headaches. And the way you cured the headache was you got the exact shape and size of it and the density of it and everything about it. Like you saw the headache, you looked at it, and then it disappeared. Um, Now have never been anybody who gets headaches, so I didn't have much literal use for that. But it stuck with me, and it was a very good example of what it is to confront something. Like in the issue of risk management and trading, I had to do a lot of looking at the potential of the options I'm trading to go against me to come up with the amount. Like I realized what I needed was a standard amount for my stop, that I could just use the same stop every time and put it in automatically when the trade triggered. Let the program do it. Computer programs are so much better at doing things than you are. At least things like that, things like putting in a stop. When the order triggers, the program will measure the exact distance that the stop needs to be and do it all in a nanosecond, and it's there. It's there when the trade triggers. So, buttons. um, and that is exactly what confronting is. And anytime, one thing that I think about confronting, I just flashed on this now, is anytime you can have something else do your confronting for you. And especially when it's a choice between manual and automatic. Just have the thing get confronted, and then your stop is there, and then you have to confront that. Now, so what I did as far as confronting that is I made myself a rule that I never back off a stop. Later, as I became better at this, I realized that there are certain situations where stops should be backed off. And that is where the allowance the stop makes is not as relevant as it should be to the previous price action before the trade initiated. And I came up with other ways of doing stops, like using a percentage stop. And then, of course, I could move it to the appropriate place. If I did a big enough percentage, and I could move it up. Never back. But what I realized was that there really is no good way to do this. And basically, if the trade is going to go against me, I might as well just take the loss the stop dictates, or even make the stop shorter. If the trade isn't looking too good, just close the stop in and forget about that trade. I can always reinitiate the trade, especially if the stops are small enough. So confront, like if you're listening to the process of thought I went through, confront is partially determined by going through an appropriate process of thought, so that you confront all the little aspects that make up the thing you're confronting. Just like getting the size and shape of a headache. And another thing about confronting that you have to know now is that you're going to have to actually, to do this right, you're going to have to create and apply a methodology for confronting that's unique to you. Because, for example, Franny was telling me that our niece is imitating her mother. And at one point, our niece told Franny that she doesn't want to turn into her mother. So at another point, when Franny caught her imitating her mother, she said to her, "Stop that. Don't imitate your mother. If you don't want to be like your mother, stop imitating her." And so she was creating confront when Franny was creating confront in our niece by not putting up with the bullshit. So another approach, and by the way, there is a list of ways to create confront in the Web College, and the title is Create Confront, and you can probably look it up under lists, most likely. If you can't find it, let me know. I always assume that anybody who's reading this book is using the Web College, because that's your resource. And another thing that you're going to need to do in order to confront anything is use your resources. Like I was reading a tweet by Mark Minervini, who is a trading teacher I like. And this is really funny, actually. So he was tweeting about, he thinks that implementing price controls is an idiotic economic policy, which it is. And so he just made that comment. And everybody started talking about their own political viewpoints. And he was saying that he didn't want to talk about any particular politician in his tweet dialogue. He just wanted to talk about, the bullshit that politicians do. They all do it. And that was what was getting him riled. And of course, all of these people, many of them are his students, they just ignored what he said. And they started espousing political viewpoints and making all kinds of idiotic assumptions. And I think the problem that Mark Minervini has is he is not confronting what it is to be a teacher and have students. He's a good trader, but he may be, a little shy of certain skills that would enable him to be a more effective guru. You know, because, you know, when you're a guru, you can't assume that your students are listening to you. They aren't. You know, that's because I'm a guru and that's what I learned. You know, it's like, forget it. You know, you can't teach them anything. So, you know, Franny has this approach to instructing people. You know, Franny had a lot of teams under her guidance, mostly design teams. She had them where she worked, and she had them in our organization, which she owned. And she said that her methodology of you know, teaching them and working with them is what she calls benign neglect. And what I noticed is they always did pretty well. The teams that I watched, they did brilliant designs. And so I think that benign neglect is an excellent approach to confronting. You don't have to pay a lot of attention to something to be confronting it. Let me give you an example. One of Franny's early proteges was a guy named Dave Luxius, who was this very tall, handsome, kind of jock type guy, you know. He even played football in his spare time in Central Park and so on. You know, you know, he would get out on the field any chance he got, you know. But he was an excellent designer, brilliant designer. And one time in one of the meetings that he was in, now I wasn't there, but I heard about this later. He just freaked out. I don't know what happened or what anybody said to do that, but he leaped to his feet and ran out of the room. And Franny happened to be coming from the other direction. And it was the course room in New York, so it was this enormous hall, you know. And then there was an anteway that had double doors, and then the other part of the loft was out there where the office was and so on. And he was running out probably to get in the elevator and leave. And Franny was coming in the other way. And there's this martial arts move that she learned where you fall on the ground and you curl your body up into a ball and you trip your opponent, and she did that. and Luxius went spiraling over her, fell on his back, and she jumped up and sat on him. And she started yelling, "Say it in words, say it in words." And she got him to confront. So benign neglect doesn't mean that you're not confronting, because obviously Franny was instantaneous confront monger, you know, in the moment. And that's the thing to know about it, that you know, there's a lot to confronting. It's a real art. You know, a lot of times I confront things for other people that they'll never get to even talk to me about. Oh, like that thing with Mark Minervini, you know. I doubt if I'll ever be able to. I mean, I suppose I could post in his newsfeed, but that just gets out of hand. I never post in news feeds. It just, you know, it has very limited benefits. Let me put it that way. You know, in another, in another post, he showed a picture of his racing car. And one of his students wrote back saying that he loves to show off. And, that's just another example of somebody who does not see Mark Minervini or understand him, who's his student, and who develops all kinds of ideas and opinions. Students are idiots. I mean, one thing that I learned early on in my guru days was to only be really face-to-face interact with advanced students, which they were just as bad as the rest, but still, that's something that I just started doing. And so I had teachers teach the courses, and the students sometimes, the new students sometimes saw me at the courses, but I never came in on day one. One thing I did was I used to do the enlightenment talk, and by the time I did the enlightenment talk, all the students knew what to expect. So it was like they knew me without ever having met me. Although at other times I did, one thing I did, and I thought I got some mileage out of this, was when they were coming in on day one, I would sit out in the intake area and I would chat with some of them and sort of get the nature of how they were coming in, which enabled me to see a whole lot of things that I had to do to help them come in a better place. So one thing I did was I created a questionnaire that they had to fill out or they wouldn't be able to come in the course, and they had to turn it in before the first day and get on the phone with somebody who would go over it with them. And then I got assistants to do what we called the questionnaire confront. And so they started confronting. Like, one thing they did on their questionnaire was write down their goals. And one thing they confronted was they didn't have any. So that's an example. See, a lot of the things that you need to confront are things you have no idea is there. So how do you confront them? And the answer is work on the web college and do a lot of testing. The web college will cause you to confront things you don't know are there. That's why I created it.